And hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Kathy Frey here from IMCO, from the International Integrated Maternity Healthcare Organisation. And welcome along this week to our lovely returning guest, Paola Zuazua. Say hello.
Hello, Kathy, and hello, everybody. Very nice to be here again.
It is really fantastic to have you here. And I was just saying with Paola that there is just such an incredible disconnect at the moment between what maternity clinicians are becoming increasingly aware about with regards to epigenetics and particularly preconception healthcare, and what the woman in the street is aware of. We've got a huge disconnect going on at the moment between academic knowledge and that knowledge in the street. And that's what we're here to do, is to help sort of bridge those gaps. But it is because this is a very, very leading edge, latest, newest science type topic. But just to overview again what we're talking about today, for those of you who may be watching this later and haven't seen the full poster explanation. So we're going to be talking about epigenetics, which is that early lives that we share. Epigenetic mechanisms in pregnancy are quite a dynamic phenomenon that respond both to maternal, fetal, and environmental factors, which can consequently influence and modify the embryo and fetal development during various gestational phases. And today, Paola is going to be particularly talking about the three most important epigenetic factor timelines, which is that around conception, during pregnancy, and at birth. So just a little background as well on Paola. She has had a lifelong interest in consciousness, sentience, and being in the origins and root causes of health and well-being. So over the years, she's developed a particular interest in how our earliest experiences share who we become and shape our health, and how genes and how those markers are expressed. Paola is a pre and perinatal psychology and health educator, trained in naturopathy, functional medicine, epigenetics, and on a number of consciousness methodologies as well, which she integrates in with her work. So Paola, why don't we kind of get started right at that real beginning of explaining what the heck is epigenetics anyway?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, for the introduction. And yes, that's a very good place to start. And I would like to give a little bit of intro, because when I jumped into the epigenetic world, there were many things I wanted to understand at that time. And on my own personal search to understand, I ran into epigenetics, and it captivated me. And I dig and dig and dig, got largely informed until I finally got trained on that. And as most of us probably know and have heard, and you very, very good describingly in the intro, but in very short, epigenetic studies the expression of our genes without altering our DNA sequence, right? So what I would say is that from this point, with the boom on epigenetics and the Epigenome project, many on the field would, with this very question, Kathy, would jump into genes, gene variation, genotypes, and so on and so forth. And I did that as well. I mean, I still do. I still go and take a look at my genotype, my family, in my community, my clients. And of course, it's part of my daily job, right? But do you have any idea how many times I have seen clients with very little or non-propensity to X or Y, still they develop certain condition, or vice versa. I see this every single day at my work. I mean,
Yeah, you're so right. It's like we sort of, it's almost like we sort of take it for granted that everything's honky-dory. And then when a condition comes out, they go, oh no, what am I going to do about that? And yeah, it's all about getting in a little bit before that, isn't it? Making that awareness. So what about if we sort of jump into today's promise of what we sort of talk, those topics that those three very important facts that are so largely overlooked, about our babies, and that is, that before conception, that during the pregnancy, and at the birth. They are the three, aren't they, the three most monumental moments, perhaps in that whole human being's life, practically, of the formation of the epigenetic genes and markers and how that all goes. So I guess it's a case of like, let's start with conception.
yeah, well, before jumping into that,
Yeah.
I would like to walk the audience a little bit on my approach around epigenetics.
Fantastic.
Because
Okay.
from one side, we have our DNA with our variants, with our genotypes that we get very interested on, right? And in many ways, as on my own journey, it helped me to understand many things. But when I've been working on it, and it's a very personal and professional observation, every single day on every single case that I work with, there's always this happening. There is a strong propensity on something that doesn't happen, or little to non-propensity on something that actually end up happening. So what is epigenetics, you ask me, and probably the audience might be looking forward to hear me talk extensively about this, about genes and gene variants and genotypes, mutations, which is important, of course. Instead of going into that direction, that we will get scientific, of course, but instead, in a very short way, for me, epigenetics is the fusion. There is the place where nurture and nature join together, right? So it's not a debate, it's not one versus the other, it's a joint venture, it's a oneness. And it's actually what I have seen, it's actually this gap in between what is causing us so much trouble. We expect to receive things coming into this world, and what is what we receive? We by nature need some things coming into this world, and what is that? What we get, right? How are we seen, listened, understood from our place, from our own being? And so I'm talking obviously in plural, yeah, and it's not just by chance. So it's us, we, our, and that is because we all come from the same place. Yeah, we all have this early life we share. We all have been conceived. We all have been going through conception, obviously, probably differently, right? Some of us, some of our babies, or some of our clients' babies, today there are different ways that bring this wonderful joy to many families, ways to help them conceive, right? Still, we all share this piece. We all have been conceived. Now, even before then, even before conception, and I will not get spiritual or energetic, just matter and tangible. We all, before conception, have been in a woman and in a man's body, being these gametes. We have been two becoming one. each with their own lives and their own experiences, with their own perception, beliefs, and with their own imprints and memories, right? So when nature and nurture have not been taken care consciously and with intention, the gap in between start getting longer and longer. Bringing consciousness and intention in place will bring them back closer and closer together. And doing this from the very beginning, and I mean consciously and intentionally taking care of this joint venture of nature and nurture, will strongly support this fusion to prevail. Yeah, that is a fusion that should not be left by chance, right?
I really
So
like how you sum it up as saying that combination of nature and nurture. You know, because we know that is, you know, when you've got a little child and you're parenting this child, you know that there's nature involved, and their natural personality, etc. And you know there's nurture. It's what you're doing with your parenting. But what you're talking about is that nature and nurture starts earlier. You know, it starts way back at that beginning of that conception. That yes, you've got those that the DNA and genome sequencing and thing that are coming in genetically from both parents, but that nurture of, you know, what is the environment that we're creating for them at conception and during the pregnancy. Yeah, isn't it? It's funny. There's been such a long time view that, you know, children sort of arrive in the world as empty vessels and they then become filled, you know, by their life. And it's not like that at all. We're realizing this more and more. And now science is backing it. So it's such an exciting cutting edge topic, that's for sure. I know that I'm personally, I'm not an epigenetic expert at all, but I sort of, as a general overview, when people ask me, I will say that, you know, an optimal time for that preconception healthcare for the woman is 6 to 12 months, you know, for the formation of eggs, and the optimal time for the man is, you know, 3 to 6 months of preconception healthcare, to, you know, because those seminiferous tubules are creating the sperm, you know, months before conception. And, you know, we know now, we don't fully understand it all, that's for sure, but we definitely know that the quality of male sperm doesn't just impact, of course, the DNA in that child, but it also impacts the rates of miscarriage. And that's something that's just so, you know, I'm dealing with that one all the time, of talking with women who are going through miscarriages. And you know, there's such a perception that a miscarriage is all the woman's fault. You know, it's her toxic womb and all these terrible terms that people will discuss. But we know that the quality of the sperm can impact recurrent miscarriages. So it's just so big. So I guess we kind of go into that thing of, you know, what is that optimal time? You know, that well, you're the expert, so what is that optimal time to prepare our bodies for the man and the woman for conception?
actually, before answering exactly that question, you have bring many things into the table. Actually,
Sorry.
that no, it's great, because I will be covering them along our talk. But you are so right. Actually, from one side, one of the things that you were mentioning, yes. So epigenetics and this epigenome project, by accident or maybe without intention, has bring us back something in the game. You know, we live in an era where we need science and facts to open up our eyes. So then be it, we have it. And each of us, we take it from the places where we are. I mean, me alone, the place where I was when I started on epigenetics was completely different from where I am right now. And the
Yeah.
reasons I got into epigenetics, it's completely different from the reason I am staying with epigenetics, right? And
That's the
all
thing,
this
isn't it? That it's like a lot of this knowledge has been known for a long time, intuitively, wise woman knowledge type thing, but we've only now just have getting the science that is able to back it. So it's not that we haven't had the scientific knowledge available before. In a way, it's kind of like we haven't had the scientific technology available before, right? So so often you'll find, particularly within, say, traditional society, there's certain things that have gone on for a long time, and that's how that certain healthcare was done. And then hey presto, hundreds of years later, modern Western scientific technology can investigate it and prove it and go, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. So it's like, yeah, we've finally got the cutting edge technology that's beginning to able to prove this knowledge that we knew all the time, and it's very exciting, isn't it?
Yes, and as you said, when we talk about preparing for conception, and actually, if somebody in the audience have heard me talking before, I mentioned this quite often, that we start parenting way before conception without even thinking about it, right? So epigenetics, I would say it more like the expression of our genes. It would be more like an expression of ourselves and the expression of our lives. And bringing consciousness and intention, of course, it's from one side a mindset, but it's also the intention and the consciousness of what is the quality of this cellular level that will become my baby in the near future or in the longer term future, depending, as you mentioned before, if I'm a male or if I would be a female, right? So yes, thank you for that, because you helped me out on the flow to explain what it is for me, epigenetics, right? It's more beyond of a genotype, of a variant, and a gene expression. It's what it's all
Right.
bringing into this environment for that expression to happen.
Feeding, isn't it? That we're not just a body, we're a body, a mind, and emotions, spiritual essence, soul, whatever you want to call it. So all of that impacts, and we certainly know, early pregnancy particularly is such an emotional time. And because 50% of pregnancies are unplanned, so for some, the pregnancy is a thrilling, wonderful moment, and for some it's a life-altering, oh my god moment. So everybody's got different emotions that can be tied into that pregnancy, but pretty soon it becomes this very valuable, we're this vessel with this very valuable thing inside us. And but I guess then what also comes along is often, women will be freaking out, like, I mean, seriously, so worried, so stressed, so upset at the fact that maybe there is an unplanned pregnancy, there was no time for any kind of preconception healthcare, and they're well aware that they have not had the optimum environment for that child. Be it, something is, I've had women that have been upset about the fact that they've been taking regular multivitamins instead of prenatal multivitamins, and oh my god, have I permanently harmed my baby? And I'm thinking, oh, that's minor in comparison to the woman who just had 3 days of partying and every recreational drug under the sun. So in her pregnancy. So, you know, there's such a big spectrum, but I guess, you know, there is that feeling when you are planning to conceive, that you should perhaps be detoxing, you know, and that you should be cleaning the system out and having that fantastic environment, which is a great thing to be doing.
Of course, it's a great thing, and that's one of the things that I will talk in today. I mean,
right.
So from one side, today there is more and more awareness about lifestyle and nutrition and toxins and everything. So one of the points that I would like to talk today about preconception is that actually it's preconception the best time for doing a detox, actually, and I will explain why. Further on, I would like to mention during pregnancy, I would like to explore about the perception from the baby point of view during pregnancy. And at the end, this third epigenetic factor at birth, I would like to bring a little bit on awareness that because, of course, giving birth, it's a very important moment for us as parents. But birth is actually the first ever most important and impactful experience of our lives. I mean, our babies and our own, right? So and of course it's something that it's kind of obvious, but does our clients actually intentionally think about it and act accordingly? So that would be the 3 points in these three phases that I would like to explore with you today, Kathy, if I may.
Yeah, can we just go back to the that question around detox and sort of length of time of preconception healthcare, just before we move into birth and whatnot. I guess people might ask that question, you know, if you had all the time in the world to plan that pregnancy, you're not on a timeline, you're just really wanting to do it as physically optimal as possible, what would you suggest is that timeline? I guess the detox should occur at the beginning of the preconception healthcare, or would you sort of recommend detoxing kind of throughout the preconception, or just at preconception? You know, like, what's the timeline on an optimal way to do it?
Well, before getting to the timeline, I would like to navigate a little bit of why preconception to preconception, right? And probably it's obvious, and most of the audience that are on the field would know about it, but some of the audience, there are also mothers that might be interested to know. And so as you mentioned, Kathy, before, so it's preconception, what this maturation of the gametes is happening, right? And it's fed and nourished by the environment. So being conscious about what are we feeding this environment with, it's very, very important, right? So we have this we are individuals, yeah, and we have this environment, and what we eat and what we drink and what we breathe, and we go into micro, and if we think of every single cell in our body as individuals, the environment is created from all these things that we are putting into our bodies, right?
Yeah.
But also what we think, what we see, what we encounter, how we respond, how we experience life, it's also creating a cascade of chemical reactions in our body that is communication as well, and it's environment as well to our cellular level. It's memory, it's cellular memory as well, that will become this one that is going to be our baby. So why to do it preconception is because when we are proactively cleaning up or detoxifying, we are bringing toxins out of the storage.
Yes.
and they get mobilized, right? So they go back to our bloodstream. And from there, if we are pregnant, through the umbilical cord, we'll get to our baby. If we are breastfeeding, then through the breast milk, it will go to our baby as well. I mean, it's very well known now, all these studies that they have done. And depending the study that you read, will be something between 200 to 300 toxins found in the umbilical cord of the newborn babies. So that's why the best time is preconception. And when you talk about the time, it's actually a very, very good question. And you mentioned a year for women, maybe 6 months for a man. And that's my ideal that I always talk about.
Right.
But actually, we also have to be realistic. And who prepare for conception with a year from now? I mean, there's of course people that would say, hey, let's prepare for conception for next year. Let's prepare our bodies, our finances, our house. And of course, that it's the ideal. Still, the common is that we think of conception most of the times already when we want to get pregnant.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah. That's so true. It's like, oh yes, we're preparing this and we're preparing, sorting the finances and sorting that, how's she going to stay home and all this. And then suddenly you're like, okay, now we're ready to have this baby. And they have done everything but prepare the body. And yeah, and you're so excited about the idea of it, and then it becomes very frustrating when it's taking months and months and months, and yeah, it should be way back at the beginning.
Exactly. Exactly. But we have to meet our clients and our own self. We have to be fair and gentle with our own selves as well, as mothers, as a couple, as a father. And we have to meet where we are at, right? And we walk from there. We walk from there, and we do from where we are, and the best that we can. Right?
And often there's situations where women have had maybe a couple of miscarriages, and at that point, that's when they start to go, hey, what's going on? What with this more information, it's like they start to become more aware of the fact that there's more information around, and then if somebody says to you, right now you need to do preconception healthcare for 12 months, they're like, what? I've just spent 12 months having 2 miscarriages. I don't want to wait another 12 months.
Yes.
So
just trying.
Yeah, so I completely understand. You're so right. We have to take people where they're at. And also, I'm a big believer that, if you've done none of that, and maybe it is an unplanned pregnancy and it's all successful, and it, you don't miscarry it, but, it successfully establishes as a pregnancy, well, clearly that baby has chosen you and wants you. So that's all meant to be as well.
That's so true, Kathy. And when you mentioned it's actually also very important, because either long time trying to conceive or having miscarriages is bringing also all these thoughts, all these fears, all this anxiety, that it's also environment and communication for that baby. For that baby that it's already there, haven't been conceived, but it's already there. And again, without getting spiritual or energetic, it's a cell in our body that is storing all this communication and all these memories. And I know that it's really hard to leave all that aside. But it's such an important step, and having this awareness and be conscious about it might be this little step towards helping to, okay, let's differentiate, separate one thing from the other, and then going back to the lifestyle interventions. I mean, things like stop eating gluten would support fertility most of the times. Sometimes it's thyroid, what is blocking something for fertility. So there are these little pieces also to look at, and also to look where and what is the underlying cause from this to happen.
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Hey, so going back to the topic about detoxing, which is such a good idea, before we, start the process of trying to conceive babies. Is there a particular program that you recommend that women can use preconception for detoxing?
Uh, no,
Okay,
no, there is
right.
no, I mean, there is not one fit approach for everybody.
Okay, no, well, that's just good to know, right? Is
I
there
think
something
what
that's standing out at the moment? Yeah.
what I would like to really mention and is to do not proactively detox during pregnancy and breastfeeding. You know,
Ah, fantastic. Yeah.
that
Otherwise, it's
is,
all just going to go into the bloodstream and it's all just going to go to the baby.
of
Right.
course, take care of a balanced nutrition, diverse nutrition, a healthy nutrition. We have to take care of nourishing our microbiome. That is part of the inheritance that we bring to our baby. And we know how important it is for development, for immune system, even for behavior. So all these kind of pieces we can do during pregnancy. And there is so many things that we can do to reduce toxins in our system and in our body. There's so many things like the obvious of trying to eat organic every time that possible, but also all these perfumes and cleaning stuff that we are breathing when cleaning the house, or all those cosmetics also that we use, start taking care of those things and reading labels, that, or there are apps that they read the label for you and will give you very good information about it. So those are
Yeah. So
things
if
that we
you
can actively
haven't,
do.
so if you haven't detoxed prior to conception, if you didn't get that message down as strong, don't be detoxing while you're pregnant, or don't be detoxing while you're breastfeeding. Not a good
No.
idea, because you are basically removing those toxins out of your cells into your bloodstream, and it's going through to the baby. But as you say, there's a lot of other things that you can be proactively doing during the pregnancy and while you're breastfeeding that are inhibiting, more toxins so.
And of course, if somebody is preconception and they want to detox, of course, in internet, there are so many smoothies and things. Of course, you can do, it will help, but the best thing that you can do is to go to a professional that will look to you individually and we create a plan for you, for your
Yes.
needs, for your lifestyle. That's why when you said there is a detox program that you recommend, no, because it is very individualized. Each person is different and we have different needs. And that's the needs that we have to meet.
Absolutely. And I think that's, comes down to that question. And oftentimes that I find myself getting asked by women is, what preconception, supplements should I be on and whatnot. And I'm like, well, there's some general things that we can sort of put across the board. But at the end of the day, the best thing to be doing is to be going and seeing, one-on-one with that holistic naturopath, that medical herbalist, that subfertility clinician, and getting that customized program. And
we can have a full talk about supplementation on pregnancy. We can have a complete webinar only about supplementation.
That's right. It's such a big topic on itself.
It's a big topic, and there's so much to know and to avoid simple things. But I will just mention one, and it's folic acid. In most of the supplements for pregnancy, for preconception and during pregnancy, even during breastfeeding, there is folic acid in there. I would say please look for folate, right? Because, and then we go to genetics a little bit. It's very common to have the variant that this synthetic form of folic acid will not be converted in our
Yes.
bodies into folate.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've actually talked about that on previous webinars as well. So those can, anybody watching here can look on our library and you'll see that the topic has gone into in depth, and you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So important. Well, I guess, how are we doing for time? I guess we need to kind of move forward into the womb and during the pregnancy. So we've obviously talked quite a bit about preconception. So now is that second time of the big impact, which is the pregnancy, and then of course the last part that we're talking about today is the birth. So so talk to us more about your thoughts around during the pregnancy.
Yes, and pregnancy, it's actually a piece that I love. No, it's hard to say. I don't want because I love conception. I love this part of conception in which to become one is the only time in man's life which to become one, and then we start, becoming this one. I love that piece, but pregnancy, it's actually a piece that I really love, because I have also find that when talking with a pregnant woman, then it's easier to bring this matter and tangible and awareness, because there's already a baby there. Before the baby, sometimes, and you for sure have seen it in your work as well, it's hard to think about your baby when the baby is still not there. Okay, so yes, again, we'll not get spiritual on this conversation. Even I could, and I would love, but we can leave that as well from another time. And I know that here at IMCO, I'm talking to an audience that are mainly professionals on the field. So the audience probably would agree with me that we live in a world where scientific, tangible explanations are needed and very much requested, right? So in this piece where I would like to talk about the perception of the baby, I promise that I will stick into this part, because yes, as we talked before, and it's following this continuum line, right? So from one side, our babies have all this material coming to them from the mother via the umbilical cord, right? With all what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe. Now, what we see, what we feel, what we encounter, what we experience, it all create these biochemical reactions that creates an environment, that we just said before, right? But that is also communication to our bodies as it is to our babies, right? And it's the same way that is communication to our cells and to our DNA. It's communication to our babies' cells and DNA. So all these chemical reactions are communication, direct communication to our babies. So let's say it this way, yeah? So mom is stressed out. All these stress hormones and chemical reactions are reaching the baby, and the baby is having an experience from it. Of course, he cannot understand, but he is definitely perceiving it. The same thing on the other way around. You're having a nice moment at the mountains, and all these pleasure hormones are reaching the baby, and the baby is having an experience from it. So what makes the difference? Yeah, all these perceptions, it's preparing the baby, of course, for what is going to expect, of what to expect on the outside world. Yeah. So then we have also our senses, that they are already at practice. And at the same time, we have all this wave of hormones and chemicals, and they all come together, and it's all input as well for the nerve system, right? So when we talk about the baby perceiving, we can see it in a very romantic, nice way, or we can see it from as a fact, from our nature and our biology that is meant to be that way. I mean, I like this quote from Bernie, and if you, I will read it because I don't want to miss one word, and I have it right here prepared because I wanted to come to this. And he said, we do not need fully developed central nervous systems or fully developed brains to receive, store, and process information. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for me, here is where consciousness and intentionality plays again such an important role. Experiences that are directed to the baby, like talking to him. You know, we have all this nature that we talk about, this biology. We have all this nurturing that we talk about, what we are doing. And when we are doing it consciously and with intention, you know, it is keeping this fusion together that is meant to be this way. Just the simple act of bringing intentionality and letting our babies know from the womb that they are perceived, that they are acknowledged. Yeah. So we all start learning the world we live in, really from very early in our times of our existences. And well, again, I can get very spiritual and energetic, but back to science. No, actually, can I tell you a story?
Please do. Yes.
It's a personal story. It's a little bit a mix of energy, spirituality, and biology, because my kids, they are very interested about me when I was a child, when I was a teenager. And my daughter, the little one, she always answers to that like, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was there. You know, she's always with all the confidence that you could see in a little one. She was there. She saw me. She joined me in every single thing that I do, and stories that I'm telling about me, my own early life. But there was this time that she replied like, huh? I don't remember that.
Really? How funny
Yes,
is that? That would have stood out.
yeah, she was like, I don't remember. But then comes the other side, you know, and my son, my elder son, he jumped in and he said, Kim, we both have been at that time already at my mom's tummy. We have been already siblings, you know. And he nailed it. Of course, they have been already there. They have been already little cells, gametes in nature growing and nurturing inside my body. Right? So I see this, I get, how you said in English, goosebumps with this story.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's like experiencing with my own kids this nature and nurture getting together.
Yeah.
Right?
Look, and I mean, that's such a gorgeous story. But I can't remember who was telling me, but on one of our other webinars, but even like down to a simple experiment that was done, you've probably heard of the experiment, that was done, you know, a few years ago, where basically they had some mice that were well-fed, happy chappies, or, you know, they were living a nice little mouse life, and everything was tickety-boo and all great. And then they started to reduce the amount of food that the mice were receiving. So they had to start to basically kind of fight over the food. And so then the little group of mice started fighting to, you know, get their food because there wasn't enough food for everybody. And then the scientists returned to giving them plenty of food. So there's no food shortage. But the mice still fought for the food, even though there was no food shortage. But here was the thing that was really freaky, is that when those mice had babies, those babies were born fighting for the food.
Mm-hmm. Even they haven't never the
even
playground.
though they'd never experienced a shortage of food.
Exactly.
And, you know, I mean, that's only mice. So, you know, how much of what's going on to us, you know, it's the more we study, the more we realize we are just at the beginning of understanding, you know, all of the stuff. And then, of course, we've got the topic of birth itself, you know, and we have this crazy high level of interventionalized labor, leading to surgical and instrumental birth deliveries. I mean, it's just nuts, you know. I mean, oftentimes around the world, you know, we'll be talking about Western hospitals that have, say, you know, 35%, you know, Caesar rates or whatnot would be a fairly common kind of level. Off, you know, sometimes it's a lot higher. But we forget that that's across the board. So what about our first time pregnancy? Because they've got a higher chance. So, you know, if we say that 35% is across the board, so now we're talking about probably more like 40% of first time mothers, and that's only the C-section rates. That's not including the instrumental delivery rates of being you know, of von Tooth and forceps, you know, and it will add that up. So we're probably looking roughly around the world, and I know that this is a very big generalization, but let's say about 50% of first, you know, mothers' births are being sucked out, yanked out, or cut out, and that's not helpful for the child. And yes, of course, we need access to emergency obstetric medicine, you know, through labor and birth. I mean, of course, there's going to be complications sometimes, but what we're doing is we're fiddling at the beginning with, you know, things like, you know, starting an induction that doesn't really need to be done, and there's not a really strong reason for it to occur, you know, and throwing up epidurals and making stuff so that we're kind of making this cascade of intervention, as they call it, rather than the cascade of normalcy. And
you know what? Sorry to interrupt you,
please,
Kathy.
yeah.
Because what you're mentioning, it's so important. And even if we are already at birth, it somehow brings me back into this preconception phase, and we are talking about detox, because emotional detox, it's so important. We live in this technological, innovative, medical system-based world, where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of distance along this nature and nurture, and in this preparing for conception, it's where ideally, and that comes a year before conception, minimum, it's getting to know your own stories. It's not about finding yourself, but rediscovering yourself, where you are at, where is all that fears coming from, empowering yourself, not against anybody. It's just being sure about yourself, about your wishes, being intentional of what you want for you and your baby. That would make such a big difference on birth delivery. But that starts way before conception as well.
Yeah.
With us,
So right. It's that defining, isn't it, who you are and what you stand for. And we've had an interesting question come in from Alison, asking, can you talk about epigenetics in connection to women who conceive using donor eggs?
Oh, not sorry. No, I can't. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Good, honest answer. Yeah.
No, because what I would say, it's so little, and again, there was a time when I was really into the DNA details, and I see it so often. And at the end of the day, it's being intentional on what we are doing pre-conception and during and after and during the parenting, and when we have grandchildren that will become their own children, is what really make the difference on our future generations. And as we were just talking right now, Kathy, we get so far away from our nature, from our own innate wisdom, from our own expectation of life. And we start creating all these chronic stress from so early that is unperceived. That when we come to maternity, there is a lot to clean up. There's a lot to detox, and not only with food and with toxins, it's within ourselves, and it's all within. So even we could go into details and go into these epigenetic or DNA alternations that happen. At the end of the day, believe me, and of course, it's purely my own professional observation that I see every day for years that I work looking at genotypes and outcomes and what it develops from propensities and what does not. At the end of the day, when the question gets bigger and more detailed, what we find always is this gap in between. Is always this gap in between what is found that has to come closer with consciousness, with awareness, getting to know our own stories, rediscovering ourselves, where we are at.
Yeah, so it's taking that holistic approach that it's not just about your body, it's also about your mind and your emotions and your essence. And you know, that's, yeah, like all of that's part of that environment for the baby. So we're going to be you know, getting close to running out of time here very shortly. So is there some conclusion information that you would like to round off? I guess sort of relating, you know, all of that back to that epigenetics. Well, we've been sort of talking about that the whole time, but anything that you would like to you conclude with really around it. And also please, before we completely wind up here, do go over your contact details as well. Now, those who have booked for this webinar will receive an automated email 24 hours after the webinar with you know, your contact information. But for those who are watching it later on down the track, maybe you could just go over that as well.
Yeah, so yes to all. I will start with my main takeaway here, and I think that I have leave it very, very, very clear, is that let's do not live our baby's life and future generations by chance. And we,
Right.
the professionals, that we are close to all these women in all these phases of their parenting journey that starts before conception, we have this possibility to help them bring this into awareness. Let's not leave it by chance. Let's gift our generations with consciousness and intentionality. We all have this early life we share. We all have been there. It's just fulfilling the gap that will make us understand better. And that it's a very good clue. Every time that you feel uncomfortable with a baby crying, with it's not eating, with I'm not getting pregnant, I'm fearing for these, they are clues that they are telling us already something to explore of ourselves that will bring so much to our little ones, expecting us to be fully for them as professionals, as parents. We all count. Yeah.
That's
and
Wonderful. A lovely summary.
Thank you, Kathy. And yes, of course, people can reach out to me. My email address is paola@paolazuazua.com. They can also, on social media, you will find me under Early Life Epigenetics, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can DM me or just post me a question or just contact me via email. I will be really more than happy to be there for any of you in any way that could be in any way a contribution.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And do you want to just go over the spelling again of your email address?
Yes, well, Paola, Paola, at, again, Paola, and my last name is Zuazua, ZUA.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And for those that are also live with us, we always love our live audience. And we know that a lot of you are watching these webinars later down the track. And it's such an exciting topic that you're talking about there today. And there's going to be a time in the future where it is no longer seen as cutting edge and leading edge, and it'll just be seen as routine. Of course you have preconception healthcare because we've known that science for decades. It'll come in at some point. It's not there now, that's for sure. And
just sorry to interrupt you. I just remember something that if they are interested on,
yes,
I will send you a link that you can send with this communication. I make a little guide for a self-exploration of our own early lives. Yeah.
fantastic.
And there
Okay.
I wrote a little bit of an intro about early life epigenetics and why it counts and what we do with this information.
So for those who won't receive this information by email, so those watching it later, how would they get hold of a copy of that? Is that on your website perhaps, or just email you for a copy?
Probably, but I think I sent you the link, so could be sent to the audience afterwards.
Yeah, that's the live one. I'm talking about the audience in months to come. So would they just email you to us for a copy of that guide?
Sure, they can do that, and I will be happy to send them the PDF. It's a PDF, it's fillable, and with all explanation. And we as professionals, it is good to have our own work done and to support our parents to be.
Yes,
as well.
and that guide that you've got is because of course, as you say, most of our audience here are maternity health professionals. So I guess that guide is something that they can then provide to their clients.
Sure. Free use, of course.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again for being back here with us. And it was really time to touch base with you again, and because it's such an important topic. And again, thank you to those of you who are live with us today. We love to have that audience, and we need to wind it up, but I want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of your week, rest of your day. And thank you, Paola, for being here, and you're an important friend of IMCO, and so we appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a lovely rest of your week.
Thank you. Send you a big hug and have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.